Welcome to Deep Thought. You can create your reality. You can create your reality. I'm going to tell you what, every single human being really creates their own reality. Now, what do I mean by reality? I'm not talking about like the earth and nature and all of that. I'm talking about how you live. You're the one who is ultimately deciding if you're going to live in a rich neighborhood or a poor neighborhood. You're deciding, you making the decision. For example, I'll use myself. I always use myself. Where I lived before this was more of a modest neighborhood. Well, mixed. Where I was, the apartment complex, I found out they had a lot of, I'll just say poorer people living there. But it was a decision to live there. But then I wanted to live someplace better. So what did I do? Made more money. Put myself in a position where I could live someplace better. I created that. Nobody else created that. Nobody gave that to me. Even people, people could say, well, all these people watched you on YouTube or these platforms, but I had to create something for them to watch. I had to put myself in a position where they were going to watch the videos or pay for the videos, pay for the books, everything of that nature. But I had to create the product. I had to create that reality. Or you could talk about relationships. We always talk about relationships, and I'm seeing more and more. I might need to talk about relationships even more on this channel. But we'll get into that later this week. You create that reality. Are you dealing with a bunch of knuckleheads or bad people? You have the choice. If you're a woman and you deal with 20 bad men, the only thing they had in common was you. If you're a man, you dealing with all these bad women, 20 bad women, the only thing they had in common was you. What are you doing to deal with that? Indeed, I had mentioned on another video about a young lady who, she just had a terrible attitude. She had a terrible attitude and was like always ready to fight. But then I remember seeing her one day, she came into work and her energy was just different. She created that reality. Every second, you are deciding how you're going to live. How you going to live. I don't care. Yeah, you can blame the days, and I've talked about the days often, but the days, they set up obstacles. They do set up obstacles. And they try to influence you. But ultimately, you have the choice of whether you're going to deal with what they are setting up. Ultimately, the power is within you. Like, say you have, like a simple thing, just have a place to live. You deciding how clean you're going to keep that place. Now, you got some people, they'll have a nice place, but then it's all jacked up. It's all messy. And like, I've been over some people's places. It was like, this is where you live. But that's their reality. That's their reality. It's symbolizing chaos. But then somebody else who's keeping the place clean, that's something else. Like one of the things, even when I had my medical emergency and I was spending that time in the hospital, and my sons would be over here sometimes, and one thing my co-parent would pick up on, how clean the place was. But that was a reality. I prefer a place that has a lot of cleanliness. I prefer it. There would be days I would spend like maybe a whole morning or something just cleaning. That was the thing, and just keeping stuff in general straight. But that's the reality. You create your own reality. You decide what you're going to do. Remember, that's how powerful your mind is. How you gonna live? What type of job you gonna work on? Now, somebody might say, well, I don't have control over it. Well, hold up, wait. You have more leverage over it depending on the education you get. You create the reality of getting an education or a certification or getting the knowledge you have to get. or the type of business you're going to do. Say you're in business. You actually create the reality of how successful it is. We can talk about the people, but then if you decide that you're going to give great service, you're going to do well, you're going to work, go the extra mile. You decide that. I remember back during the Great Recession, and there was where I was working, there was a major layoff, major restructuring and layoff. Yet I survived it, even made more money. But how did I get there? Because the reality I created was, I got to make more money. I got to keep working. I created that reality of being in that position. See, the thing is, you have to take responsibility out here for what you do, for the choices you make. I'll get more into choice in the next episode. Of course, I've talked about it several times, and I'll get more into it in the next episode. But what choices you making, you decide. Like if you're in a bad neighborhood, ultimately you can figure out how to get out of it. You create the reality. Nobody is forcing you to stay there. You can fix it. Like I'll use let me throw a Money Matters example in here. My credit was jacked up a couple times. My credit was jacked up a couple of times. Yet I was able to fix it. Several times I was able to fix it. I created the reality of fixing it, and then I was able to do other stuff. I mean, this place I'm sitting in now, great credit, but then a few years ago, it wasn't as great. I was able to do a lot of stuff. I did the work. I didn't wait for somebody else to do it or something to change. I did the work. I did what I had to do. But I took responsibility for it. I didn't say, oh, well, it was this happened or this happened. I took responsibility for it. Or even when I had that medical emergency. And I always talk about it because I want people, anybody else going through it, to know they can always get through it. But I could have just sat back and just been like, oh, still had a feeding tube in my stomach, losing weight, not being able to move around. And indeed, somebody had even recommended I get some type of disability. I was like, no, that's not me. That's not my reality. My reality is being able to move around. Even in a therapy center, my reality was, no matter what, I'm going to move around. And like I said, talked about it before. I could not walk the same way. I couldn't walk at all. There were times I would have to be in that wheelchair. But even when I was in the wheelchair, I didn't use my arms. I would just use my legs to get to where I had to get. I was doing everything I needed to do to walk. I wanted to create that reality of me walking again. I wanted to create the reality of me being able to eat again. See, going through life, you have to take responsibility for the life you live, for the reality around you. You have the power to create that reality. If you can think, you can create that reality. I want you to really think about that, all right? So anyway, that's all I have for right now. Think on everything I said, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace and blessings.